I want to answer the question, is the gospel legend? Either the gospel really happened or it is a made-up story. Now, I came across a new book that I love called Too Good to Be False. I highly recommend you getting this book. It's terrific. And in this book, what the author explains, that if it was a legend, that means we would have certain telltale signs of a legend. A good example of how legends are started is, you remember playing that game, Pass It On to the Next Person? What happens, someone has a story and then they whisper the story into one person's ear, right? Then that person has to whisper it in the second person's ear, and on till, let's say you have 10 people. And by the end of the 10th person, the person tells the story, what they heard, and everyone laughs because the whole story is changed, right? You don't even have the same lead character in the story. You don't even have the same things that happen in the story. And everyone laughs because they show what happens when you pass on a tale. Before you know it, people forget about that tale and they get it all messed up. And so this is what critics will say. They'll say, the Gospels was just simply stories passed on from one generation to another, but not just to 10 people, but it was passed from one nation and another culture, another language. And before you knew it, the whole story got convoluted and it was just a made up story. Now, that's what the critics will say. But here's what this author, Tom Gilson, says on Too Good to Be False. He makes the point that if it is a legend, then prove it. We would have certain telltale signs of a legend. Remember that game where one person whispered the story and it passed on to 10 people, and before you know it, everything has changed, right? But here's the point. Well, we have 4 Gospels that tell the story of Jesus, and none of them depart from the original story. They all are consistent with the same story. So if it's a legend, then you would expect, for example, one gospel writers might call the Savior Jesus, another one might call him Matthew, another one might call him Peter, another one might call him Thomas. In other words, the name of the Savior would even change from one nation to another. But instead, what do we have? All 4 Gospels still have the same name, Jesus. Not only that, they still have the same mother named Mary. See, if it was legend, then all of a sudden you would have a change. In one gospel writer, it might be Mary, another Joanna, another Susa. And before you know it, you don't even have the same mother of Jesus. But yet all 4 Gospels still have the same mother. And they also have the same lead character, Peter. So it's not like one Gospels has Peter as the lead, another one has Thomas, another one has Andrew. No, they all have the same leader. So here's the answer to the critics. If it's a made-up story, why are the same characters the same? Not only are the same characters the same, but we also have Jesus growing up in Israel. None of them changed that. None of them say that he grew up in Rome. Another one said he grew up in Egypt. Another one said he grew up. No, they all had the same story. Not only that, if it's a legend, then you would have the death of Christ taking place at different times in these 4 Gospels. One of them might say he died at Passover. Another one might say he died near the atonement. Another one might say he died at a particular day. But no. In the Gospels, all 4, they have Jesus dying the day before the Passover, the same feast. Not one of them divert from when he died. And they all talk about him rising from the dead on Sunday, the first day of the week. Not one of them are inconsistent in this. But in a legend, remember that game where you pass on the legend or a story to one person, that person passes on to another and passes on to 10 people. And that's just a matter of a few minutes. And then the story's all messed up. Yet in the Gospels, you don't have that. Then on top of that, you would expect that if they're going to tell a story about a God-man, that at least one of the gospel writers would point out that Jesus made a mistake, but he learned from his mistakes. He got better. He made some errors here early on, but he ended up improving. Because that's how you do story development. Is you're telling a story from a man from his birth to his death. You're going to show some growth in that man, some mistakes, some errors, but him learning from those mistakes. And think about it. All four gospel writers, not one of them show a mistake that Jesus made. Not one. And some of you who if you're not a writer, you don't appreciate that. But every one of you who are writers, you know how difficult it is to tell a story about a person from birth to death and not showing character development and not showing improvement of the character, that the character grows and improves. But in the life of Jesus, he doesn't grow and improve in any way because he doesn't make any mistakes. I want you to think how hard it is to write a story like that. A person who never makes a mistake from beginning to end of the story. That doesn't happen. Even in these superhero movies, you have Iron Man, Superman, you have all the other characters. One of the things that you notice is the characters they're human. They're part human and part supernatural, right? In a similar sense to Jesus. But in all of these stories, you find them having their frailties, their mistakes, their weaknesses. You find dumb things that they do. But then they learn from those mistakes and improve and conquer their demons. You know what I mean? They conquer the problems that they're going through in life. All of the superheroes do that because that's the normal way you would tell a story. But in the Gospels, you don't find any of that. Jesus is consistently perfect from beginning to end. And I want you to know how hard it is to tell a story like that. And yet all four gospel writers tell the same story. On top of it, they all show he had divine powers to heal, perform miracles. Normally, when you show someone with incredible power, you cannot help but tell a story or two how he used those powers for himself. But no, none of the four gospel writers show that Jesus used any of those powers for himself. Not one. You know, I remember watching Superman. And Superman, you know, he would fight, but a lot of the fighting was to save his life. In other words, they were trying to kill him, and he would fight back to stop himself from dying. Obviously, he spent a lot of time saving other people, which showed a selfless act. But once in a while, Superman would do something just for himself. I remember one time he had some coffee, like I have right now. The coffee was cold, so he used his X-ray vision to heat up the coffee cup. And then it got hot and he got to drink hot coffee. Now, do we look and say, oh, that's terrible, he used his powers for himself? No, that's what you would expect. Let me ask you, if you had these supernatural powers, would you not at least use a few of the times for yourself? Well, yeah, I would do it sometimes for myself. Of course, that's normal. But yet none of the gospel writers tell one story of Jesus using his powers for his own sake. Now, I'm bringing this up because the critics who say that the Gospels are legend, where's the proof of it? If it's legend, why is the name Jesus consistent? Why are the same characters, Mary, the main apostle Peter, why are they all consistent? Why does Jesus die on the same day, rise on Sunday morning? Why are they all consistent in that? Why don't they show any character development of Jesus learning from his mistakes? But none of that happens. Do you understand that? So the critics who say it's a legend, where's the proof? It's like someone coming into a small town and say, we know who the murderer is. Here's all the evidence. They point out who the murderer is, but there's one problem. No murder has ever been committed. There is no one who died. So all the evidence and claim that so-and-so is the murderer because we got the proof. Well, if you don't have a murder, then it doesn't matter who you're accusing as the killer. And that's what the critics do. They say the gospel is all legend. It all is all made up. And yet they don't tell you where it was made up. They don't tell you, they don't show the inconsistencies of the gospels. Oh, sure, there's a little story here or there. Maybe one gospel writers tell it a little different than another one. There might be some details that are added that are not mentioned in that. But that's like missing the forest for the trees. And so the critics, they cannot, if they say it's legend, then prove it. Where's the legend? Why is the Gospels all consistent? This is a great, powerful truth to show that the gospel story really did happen. Because that's the other alternative. If it's not a legend, and there's no evidence that it's a legend, then it really did happen. And that will explain why the stories of the four Gospels are consistently the same. If you want more information about this, I really encourage you to get this book called Too Good to Be False. A lot of these truths that I'm sharing today came out of this book, and it made me think a little deeper about our Christian faith, and it made me realize more than ever how true the gospel stories really are. I hope you got blessed with it. Please share this with your friends. I know they'll be blessed too. God bless you.